Hello everyone and welcome to Music City, USA, here on WRVU Nashville 91.1 FM. This is Cowboy Anton along with you. I'm glad you all joined in because we're going to have a very special show today. It's a rainy and cold morning here in the Music City, but we're going to have some great hot country music here and a very special guest on the show today. But before we move on to that, I have a very special tribute to another true legend of country music who's done just about everything from writing songs to managing to acting in movies. He wrote Johnny Cash's classic Ring of Fire with June Carter. And in 1962, he and Claude King wrote this song. Claude King recorded it and took it to #1 for 9 weeks. It was also a big crossover hit. This is Merle Kilgore's own recording of a very classic song that I've always liked and which was a #1 hit for Claude King. Merle Kilgore just passed away some months ago, and this is our tribute to him, and then we'll move on to our big start today on Music City, USA. But before that, Merle Kilgore's version of Wolverton Mountain. Okay, that was Wolverton Mountain, and a great version by Merle Kilgore. He was the writer of this song, and Claude King recorded it in 1962. This is our tribute to a great singer and songwriter. He's done just about everything in country music, Merle Kilgore, and you can find that on the compilation number 54 that Colonel Buster Dawes just sent to me. And don't forget that Jamboree on the Mountain coming up the 6th, 7th, and 8th of May, 2005, very close to Nashville here in Monteagle, Tennessee. You're listening to WRVU Nashville 91.1 FM. This is Music City, USA. And, well, I'm proud to introduce to you our guest star here on the show this morning. Let me introduce to you a man who is truly a living legend, a real pioneer of country music. He's had 32 top 10 hits, over 100 chart records, and several #1 hits. His million-seller Charlie Shoes was selected as one of the top 100 hot country singers of all time. He has been inducted into several Country Music Hall of Fames, but his personality and career go well beyond these facts and figures. He's a member of the Grand Ole Opry, and he's been a member for 45 years now. He's still playing the Opry today as good as ever. I was there some weeks ago, and what a great job he did. He's one of my all-time favorite country singers, and that's why I'm honored to welcome to the show the tall Texan Billy Walker is here. Thank you very much, Billy, for being here with us.
Well, thank you, Anton. Good to see you. Well, gracious, we've got a studio audience today. Good to see you, Anton.
Thank you. Great seeing you here. And, you know, I've always wanted to have you on the show. When I started out in Spain doing my country shows there, I've always wanted to have country singers in the studio and have them come here for a chat, listen to music, and you were top of that list, Billy.
Well, I appreciate that very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. A couple of weeks ago, I did the Midnight Jamboree, and you called in, and Jennifer over there, that was the gal that was doing the MCing and plugging the records, said Miss Anton Garcia called in. I said, well, you know, it didn't dawn on me at the time, because when you're on live radio like we are today, you don't have too much time to think about who you're talking about. I said, well, I'm glad she's listening, and I know you had a lot of fun out of that.
Yeah, well, I had a kick out of that. I won't hold it against Jennifer. It was very, very funny.
I bet you got some kidding from your listeners, didn't you?
Well, I got
your friends.
Yeah, I got a lot of kidding from my friends about that, Miss Anton Garcia and all that. But well, I guess that Jennifer just didn't read the cowboy part of it.
Oh, well, so. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. You were born in Rawls, Texas.
Yeah, that's way out west Texas where the chickens chase the jackrabbits. Yeah.
And you know that song by Ernest Tubb that says there's a little bit of everything in Texas?
Yeah, that's right. Well, there is. There is. You know, you start out from East Texas, and it's got a lot of kind of flat land with a lot of pine trees, and then you get on towards Dallas, 250 miles away, and the land changes into kind of a flat rolling hills, and then you get about 250, 300 miles further west Texas, and then it's called the Caprock. And that's about 40 miles east of Lubbock, where I grew up around. And then you have the Texas Plains, where one week the sand blows from New Mexico into West Texas, and the next week it blows back into New Mexico. So that's where I'm from.
But I've read that your first years in life were not the happiest one.
Well, we grew up in a lot of, we were poor people, we kind of sharecroppers and ranchers, and we did a little bit of everything to stay alive, because I was actually born during the Depression, and it lasted for several years until World War II came along, and by then, you know, I was up chopping cotton and doing a lot of other things to just stay alive and help pay the mortgage payment and eat. So I know what it is to work. But I saw a Gene Autry movie when I was 13 years old called Public Cowboy #1, and I said, I'm going to do what that guy's doing. I know I can. And so I picked turkeys that fall for the Thanksgiving holidays, and got enough money to buy me an old cheap guitar and a 25-cent instruction book, and I taught myself how to play. And by the time I was 15, I was singing on live radio out in Clovis, New Mexico.
So that's how you started out watching a Gene Autry movie, just drove you to country music?
Absolutely, absolutely, buddy. He had an effect on me. And so not only me, but Marty Robbins, Jimmy Newman, all of the guys in my era was affected by Gene Autry.
So when you turn on the radio, what kind of singers, what kind of country music would you listen to back then?
Well, we didn't have a radio to play.
Okay.
we had a battery-operated radio out at the farm, and we had a wind charger, and then once a week on Saturday night generally, we listened to the radio. But, you know, we did, I was affected by radio out of Lubbock and Clovis, New Mexico. And, you know, you can always find a way to listen to somebody else's radio. And that's how I got interested in listening to records. I listened to Gene Autry, Bob Wills, Jimmy Wakely, the early Ernest Tubb, Bill Monroe. And I was kind of affected by all of them.
And I'm sure you listened to Grand Ole Opry, too, a lot.
Well, we did. The Grand Ole Opry came on the radio at 7:30, or 7 or 7:30 on Saturday night, and we would always listen to the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday, but that's about the only time we ever got much of the Grand Ole Opry. And
then came 1949, and you signed your first recording contract.
Yeah, I was 20 years old, and I went to Dallas and got on the Big D Jamboree and started singing, and Hank Thompson helped me get my first record contract with Capitol Records, and I stayed with Capitol a couple of years. I got a chance to go to Columbia. Actually, I got let go by Capitol Records because they didn't see any promise in my career, and so I got a contract with Columbia Records, and I stayed with them for about 15 years, and I had some million sellers. My first hit came when I was 23 with my fourth record with Columbia Records, and so I had I think about 25 top 10 records in all with Columbia when I stayed with them, and 20 somewhere. They just put out a new a CD on me called the Columbia Hits. There was 20 of them in there, so somewhere along the line we had quite a good success with Columbia. My first million seller was in 1962, along with, you know, Claude King in with Charlie Shoes, which was a million seller for me. Cross the Brazos in '64 was a million seller. Yeah.
So we'll start the music on today's show listening to one of your greatest recordings, and it's a song that just about everyone has recorded, Billy, but I tell you that your version has a little something. I don't know what it is, but...
Well, I had the original record.
Yeah, I know you did. You had the original record on that.
Yeah.
And that's a song written by Willie Nelson called Funny How Time Slips Away.
Yeah, he was living with me when he wrote that song.
So that's how you listen to it?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. That's a song that went to the top 25 in 1961, written by Willie Nelson. And here we are. Funny How Time Slips Away, Billy Walker's version. Funny How Time Slips Away, a song written by Willie Nelson and recorded in 1961 by Billy Walker. It went straight to the top 25. It's a great recording in that Nashville sound that came out in the...
That's Floyd Kramer playing piano on there, and Grady Martin leading the session, and Harold Bradley playing guitar, and also Hank Garland played rhythm guitar on that session. So Hank just passed away, and so did Grady not too long ago. Harold's president of Musicians Union here, so, you know, I got all them good old goodies on there. Some great pickers back in those days, too. And for the times, they were probably the best.
Yeah, you got the A team of Nashville musicians there.
Yeah.
On that session. That was a Columbia recording.
Yeah, we really started hitting in the pop field with that, first of all. It was a little kind of modern for the country people until, you know, the couple of pop records come out on it, and then they started playing me in the country field on it. So, man, you don't never know what field you're going to get played in when you make a record these days.
Yeah, well, Willie Nelson, who wrote that song, was well known as a songwriter back then, not a singer yet, wasn't he?
No, he was mostly a writer and a musician, performer, playing. He worked a lot with Farron Young and Ray Price back in those days.
He even wrote songs for Ray Price that he recorded in the late 50s, I think.
Yeah,
But let's go back to 1952, and that's when you started to be on the Louisiana Hayride.
Yeah, Webb Pierce, I've come up here to Nashville to record, and Webb Pierce and Farron were working up here doing some of those old Ganaway films. And Webb came over to the record session. I was cutting up Tulane Hotel, where Hank Williams cut all his hit records, and they tore the old Tulane down and put a library down there several years ago. And he said, when are you going to come down and be on the Louisiana Hayride with us? And I said, well, my deal with Hadacol is just working out. I was doing a 16-station radio network for Hadacol, which was a big tonic back in those days, and the government shut them down for having too much alcohol in it.
That was Mr. LeBlanc was doing that, wasn't he?
Dudley J. LeBlanc.
Dudley LeBlanc, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
From Louisiana, I guess he was.
Yeah, from Lafayette, Louisiana. And anyway, Webb called up Horace Logan. He said, hey, Billy Walker's going to come be on the Hayride with us. And he said, well, when does he want to come? I said, how about starting July the 15th, 52? And so that's when I started. It was Webb and Farron and Red Savine, Slim Whitman. A little later on, Jim Reeves came over there. And, of course, George and Lefty were guesting a lot on the Louisiana Hayride. So it was a pretty big show.
And I guess it was kind of an answer to the Grand Ole Opry back then.
Well, yeah, it was. It was a great proving ground because most all the people that got to be big artists came to the Grand Ole Opry eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where, for example, Hank Williams got his start and Jim Reeves got his start.
Yeah.
And also...
Hey, I helped get Elvis Presley a job over there, too, so he more or less got his start over there, too.
And you, yeah, I was going to ask you about Elvis because Elvis was on the show around the same time you were on it.
Well, yeah. In fact, he played his first show with me and Slim Whitman in August of 1954 at the Overton Bandshell in Memphis. And so, man, I knew he was something different, but I didn't know how different he was going to be. And I went back to the Hayride and talked to Horace Logan into calling him up and giving him a guest appearance over there to see, you know, if he liked him. And so he gave Elvis a year's contract. And so I took Elvis on the tour with me in January of '55 whenever he turned 20 years old.
And Tillman Franks was on that tour too, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tillman and I promoted the dates together because I was from West Texas and I knew all those promoters out there, so we promoted those dates together. Me and Elvis and a couple of guys that had a big hit record then called Jimmy and Johnny, called "If You Don't, Somebody Else Will," yeah. And it was a kind of a top 2 or 3 song back in those days, and so we had a pretty good show. Yeah,
that's a good novelty song, that Jimmy and Johnny song.
Yeah,
Don't Somebody Else Will.
Yeah,
I think Ray Price also did a version of that. But
he did.
In any case, did you get to know Elvis well in those years?
Oh yeah, I got to know him really well. In fact, I was sitting right next to him at an old Texas cafe right around the corner from the Hayride whenever Parker came over and they shook hands, and Parker became his manager. So, you know, anyway, enough about Presley, and we'll talk about Hank Williams. Hank, I sang at Hank's second wedding, and I was his opening act the very last tour that he ever made, which was about 10 days before his death. And so he rode with me all the time. I had a brand new Packard automobile back then, and so Hank rode with me then, and so we got really well acquainted. We did several things together before that, but he liked me and I liked him. He was a big star, buddy. He was a big star back in those days.
Yeah, and I was I'm actually reading a book about Hank Williams now, and it looks like a lot of people claim that they knew him well, but actually not a lot of people actually knew him. But how close were you and Hank?
Well, close enough. We shared some rooms together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and close enough. He rode with me and put me on his show. He didn't have to put me on his tour because it was just called the Hank Williams Show. Mm-hmm. But I had a hit song out back then, and he liked me. So, you know, he hired me for the 10 days that we did the show together. So, and I was actually supposed to come back to the Opry with him whenever he was supposed to come back to the Grand Ole Opry in February of 1953. Mm-hmm. And I was to be a part of the Hank Williams package, but I was going to be a featured artist on the Grand Ole Opry also. But, you know, it didn't happen. And so it took me another 7 years to get here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did you ever sing with him on stage?
I don't think we ever sang together on the stage because I would go out and open up. I did the first 30 minutes on the shows that we did, and then Hank would come on and do the next hour, and that's kind of how it worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's go on to some more music from Billy Walker here on Music City USA.
What are you going to play?
I'd like to play very big hit you had in 1960s, early 1960s, actually 1962. It was your first #1 hit.
Oh, Charlie Shoes?
Charlie Shoes, that's it.
Yeah, I got a story about Charlie Shoes. I'll tell you after it gets through.
All right, we'll listen to this song, 1962. It was the first #1 hit, and when he recorded this, Billy Walker could very well say that he had arrived. Charlie Shoes by Billy Walker here on Music City, USA.
Okay, do I get to break in here for a moment?
You sure?
Okay, this is Ken Berryhill breaking in here very rudely, but I have a blooper, a Billy Walker blooper, backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and about 10 years ago. We had moved into the corporate offices there in the Ryman for some silence for a change from the Greenwood and the dressing rooms, and next to me and Billy Walker was Skeeter Davis.
Oh, boy.
And you will listen, the reason I'm mentioning that, when he makes his blooper, his mistake, you hear her laugh and her little comment.
Okay.
And I think I'll let it ride through into the break he does for me to show he could do it right, you see.
All right.
I'll be plugging my show, but you can send me a bill on that. So kill the mics and let's go.
Well, I guess you know all that is always great in the country music business, and when we speak of greatness,
Don't want to do another language.
Billy Walker, take two.
Hi, everybody. I'm Billy Walker speaking, and I always listen to the Ken Berryhill Show because I know he's going to play my records. How about that, Ken?
Okay, there you go. That's it, Billy. I'll sell that to you for $1,000.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've done a bunch of those, and I've got my tongue twisted over my eye teeth several times doing that. But that's funny.
That sure was funny. Don't forget to listen to Ken Berryhill Show here on WRVU Nashville. It's right after Music City USA, Ken's Country Classics, and the Old Record Shop. An hour of great classic country music and another hour of great old pop music, which, in my opinion, is the best pop music.
Yeah.
All right, we have Billy Walker here in the studio with us, Music City USA, the WRVU Nashville, here live from the Surratt Student Center here at Vanderbilt University. And we were talking about Elvis, we were talking about Hank Williams, but how did you get signed to Columbia? How did that happen?
Well, actually, Capitol had dropped me couldn't see any future to my career, and Don Law, who was recording at the Jim Beck studio, I was, haunting the recording studio because me and Lefty and Ray Price were over at the Big D Jamboree together. And so Lefty, I had told Lefty before he come out with If You Got the Money, I Got the Time, which was his first Columbia record. I said, don't go out and buy a Cadillac, buddy, because I'd already I'd had 3 or 4 records on Capitol, and they weren't all that great. And just as soon as If You Got the Money, I Got the Time came out, I mean, it exploded on the world, and he used to laugh at me all the time because we worked a lot of shows together, and he would always go back to, old Walker told me not to go buy a Cadillac. And so anyway, I hung around Jim Beck's studio, and Beck said to Don Law, he said, here's the guy you ought to take a listen to. And so Don signed me to a contract, and so the 4th record I had proved to be very successful, and I went on with them with a lot of records after that.
That happened in 1954, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was signed to Columbia February the 5th, 1951.
51? Okay.
Yeah.
That was
54, I had the first legitimate top 10 record I had, yeah.
Yeah, well, around those years, 1954, 55, 56, rock and roll was sweeping the nation.
Yeah, I helped bring it in with Elvis. I didn't really help bring it in. Elvis Presley brought it in. Actually, there was 2 or 3 guys on this tour that we were out through West Texas. Buddy Holly came over. Buddy Holly was from Lubbock, and I knew Buddy because I'm from West Texas. And so Buddy was singing, just 3-chord buckaroo songs like we all were back in those days. And he saw the effect that Elvis had on the crowd when we did the show there in Lubbock. And so a couple of years later, I split a record session with Buddy over at the Norman Petty studio in Clovis, New Mexico, who actually helped develop Buddy's career. And right before That'll Be the Day came out. And so, boy, he was rocking, and he was a kind of a rockabilly artist back then. Of course, that's how Elvis really started out. He was called the Hillbilly Cat.
The Hillbilly Cat.
Yeah.
So you were at that concert that opened Buddy Holly's eyes to rock and roll.
Yes, because we did the concert there in Lubbock, and it was really successful. That's when I let Elvis close the show, because we had played some dates before then where I closed the show because I had a top 10 record at the time, and the guy with the biggest record had to close the show. Well, I learned better than that real quick.
Yeah, and do you think that the coming of rock and roll hurt country music any or not?
Oh yes, very very definitely. It from about the middle of '55 up until the early '60s, you couldn't hardly give a country record away. I think "Crazy Arms" was probably the biggest song that came along in a pure country vein that kind of got people interested back in listening to country music, because there wasn't all that many people, radio stations playing, country music. They all went to that kind of a rockabilly type of a sound.
So Nashville came up with a different, with an answer to that rock and roll music, but we'll talk about that after we listen to our next song.
Okay, what are you going to play?
Which is my favorite song you ever recorded, and I think this is the same. I mean, the same thing happens with a lot of people that like your records. I think a lot of those fans enjoy that song just about any other.
Is this Bear With Me a Little Longer?
Well,
what is it?
It's going to be Cross the Brazos at Wake.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, actually, Cross the Brazos has been the #1 song all over the world for selling a record for me. And it's about the Brazos River that runs through Waco, Texas, where I used to play in all the time. Here it is.
Beautiful song. Cross the Brazos at Waco by Billy Walker. One of my old-time favorites in country music. A wonderful Western-flavored song that is still one of Billy Walker's most requested numbers, and he sang it at the Grand Ole Opry when I was there, and I was real glad he did. Music City, USA, 91.1 FM, WRVU Nashville. This is Cross the Brazos at Waco. WRVU Nashville, 91.1 FM. This is Music City, USA, Cowboy Anton, along with you. I'm glad you joined in. We have Billy Walker here live in the studio with us. And that was my favorite song he ever recorded, Cross the Brazos at Waco, which was a top 3 hit in
Well, it was actually it stayed at number 2 for about 6 weeks in the Billboard. Now I could tell you a story, but why it didn't hit number 1. It was number 1 in the record world in Cashbox, but it never made it to number 1 in Billboard for financial reasons. They wanted $25,000 to put it number 1.
That was Cross the Brazos at Waco. You're listening to Music City USA, and remember that we have 2 phone lines here at the studio. One is 322-7625. That is 322-7625. And the other one's 421-7625. 421-7625. You can call in with any questions, any comments, maybe requests. And we're open to that. And remember, 322-ROCK. Those last 4 digits spell out the word rock. So 322-ROCK, 421-ROCK. We're doing a country music radio show here, not a rock one.
Yeah, we're rocking country this morning.
Rocking country here on Music City USA with Billy Walker. And this song, Cross the Brazos at Waco, is a Western-flavored song.
Yeah, I used to play in the Brazos River. In fact, I was in an orphanage for about close to 5 years there. And my mother passed away when I was 4 out in West Texas. And my dad put me and 2 of my brothers in the Methodist home there in Waco, Texas, which was about 4 or 5 blocks from the Brazos River. And they used to take us down there and let us play in the river, hoping, I guess, we'd wash away. Anyway, so I came back. My dad came and got us out, and we went out to West Texas and eastern New Mexico. And then when I was about 20, I came back and was on the radio there in Waco. That's where I met Hank Thompson. He was on the opposite station from me. So I'm very familiar with the old Brazos River.
Yeah, and after 1959, when Marty Robbins recorded that huge hit, El Paso, which was a number 1 hit record of the week here on Music City USA some weeks ago, it looks like this Western-flavored songs, border songs, Mexican, Texan songs, really got very popular.
Well, you know, Marty and I talked a lot about that because we both. Yeah, I told you that he was affected by Gene Autry and the Sons of the Pioneers. Well, so was I, you know. And I grew up around a lot of Mexican people out there in New Mexico and West Texas. And so I love, and he grew up in Arizona. So we were both affected by the same style of music. I had 4 or 5 hits myself. And, of course, El Paso was such a gigantic hit. Everybody thought that Marty originated that style of music, but really we just it had evolved from Foy Willing and the Riders of the Purple Stage to the Sons of the Pioneers, the 101 Ranch Gang, a lot of different people in the 30s and 40s sang westerns like that, and so we loved those, and it kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, I guess that's where it came from. Now, Marty Robbins gave it a different sound, different style to it, and those story songs that he would record, and like gunfighter ballads and trail songs and all that.
Yeah, he was a very prolific writer. Which talent? I've written some songs, but I'm not the songwriter Marty Robbins was. He was a great songwriter. The character, we'd meet up there at WSM a lot of times, and he'd say, "Hey, I want to come over to my studio. I want you to listen to some songs." So I'd go over there, and he'd play the piano and sing that little studio he had over there. And I said, he'd sing me a song. I said, "Hey, what you gonna do with this one?" He said, "You don't think I'm gonna let you record it, do you?" I said, "All I am is nothing but an ear for your songs." And so, anyway, one time we worked a show in Spencer, Iowa, and it was the largest free fair in the United States outside of Orange County, California. There's about 25,000 people there that day, and I did the first hour, and Marty did the second hour, and I got a standing ovation. He said, "Well, you just did my show. That's all you did." And I said, "Well, hey, Marty, I can do your show better than you can." And so he got up to monkeying around. He was singing "Don't Worry." And so I just walked out on the stage and started imitating him because we sound a lot alike on some songs. And so the crowd just went wild. And so we did another duet on Cross the Brazos at Waco. And Marty was a pretty good guitar picker himself, so he could play good gut string guitar. So we had a lot of fun that day on stage.
So did you have a hand in writing Cross the Brazos or not?
No, Buster Doss and Kay Arnold, who he was married to at the time, wrote that song, and Morris, Kay wrote Morris, and I did about 5 or 6 of her songs in that era. In that Cross the Brazos album, I think I killed 140 people on that album.
Well, Billy Walker in the studio with us. We're really enjoying his staying over here with us, and really happy about having you here, Billy. And we'll move on with to some other song that I really like as well. Another of your Columbia recordings.
Okay. What is it?
It's called Circumstances.
Okay, this was a 1963 hit that we had. It rode the charts for about 24, 25 weeks. Hope you enjoy it.
There we go. Great song. Billy Walker here in the studio with us. And now, Circumstances. Music City, USA, WRVU, Nashville. And this was a huge hit for Billy Walker, too. And a song that I've always liked out of all the songs that he has recorded. Circumstances.
Yeah, in fact, when we recorded that song, disc jockeys called me up and said, "Is that song a little brash for our radio?" I said, "Well, I don't think so."
Yeah, well, you were saying before that as when rock and roll heard a lot of heard country music a lot when it came on the musical scene. So Nashville had its own answer to rock and roll, and they called it the Nashville sound. What was that all about?
Well, actually, it was a combination of studios and musicians and songs. You had great songwriters that would actually migrated to Nashville mostly because of the musicians in the studio, and the Grand Ole Opry was a big part of that because it had made stars out of other people, you know, like Tubb and Acuff and Bill Monroe and those kind of figures. And it was, instead of portable record studios like they used to set up in hotels to record Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, they'd come to Dallas and they'd find a place that would, but they brought all the equipment in and recorded. Well, and Chicago had a good studio, but it kind of went out of style. And when Owen Bradley, actually Castle Studios was the first really good studio here. Francis Craig recorded a 4 or 5 million seller called Near You.
That's a great song.
And it helped establish Nashville as a recording center. And then whenever they tore the Tulane Hotel down, of course the Castle Studios was in it, Owen Bradley then put in a place out there on Music Row. It's now called the Sony headquarters, but it was, and I cut one of the first record sessions in 1955 in there. Our echo chamber was an old bathroom that had been plastered, and one speaker was in the corner, and the mic is in the center, and that's how they got the echo chamber in there. So it has evolved a long way since that particular time. But the musicians, the singers, the songwriters, the songs are the mainstay of any kind of music industry. And Nashville had better songs than anywhere else because the songwriters kind of congregated here.
Now, when I was in Spain, I used to listen to a nationwide country radio show, the only nationwide country show there was over there. A friend of mine, Joan Tortosa, was the one who was the DJ doing that show, and he always asked the listeners for their opinion about what is first, the singer or the song.
Well, what they come to the conclusion?
Some people think it's the singer, some people think it's the song. You seem to think it's the song.
Well, I've seen hit songs be sung by bad singers, and I've seen good singers sing a bad song. And so the good song made the hit, the bad song doesn't. So it doesn't make it, it all starts with a good song and a good rendition of the song.
Well, now that you talked about the Owen Bradley studio and Francis Craig, I'll take advantage of that to talk about a little, just to tell the listeners about a great box set that Bear Family has out that's called Shot in the Dark. And it has all of the Bullet label recordings here in Nashville, and there's a great book on there that tells the story of the Nashville music industry. So.
Yeah, I knew old Jim Bullitt. Yeah, the guy that owned that record company. He was see, back in those days, you could take a good independent label and have a good hit. What it would do, it would start out causing, a popularity on the song, and then a major label would pick up the independent label and distribute it. Well, you don't have that anymore. You can't hardly get played by an independent label on radio anymore. Radio has become so controlled, and that's the really big problem of our country right now. You've got one identity called Clear Channel that's over 1,300 radio stations, and they control what the listeners listen to, and so it's very difficult for a new artist to get a break these days, to get his songs or anything that's fresh and anew, because you got all these guys controlling everything, and it's not like that in other countries. So.
Well, no, it's not exactly like that in other countries, but the result is usually the same. In Spain, it's pretty much the same thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Money controls everything, doesn't it?
That's true.
Yeah. Except the Lord, he's uncontrollable. He dictates what he wants.
Yeah, that's what an old Dub Dickerson song from the 50s said. Money talks. Well, money talks and controls things on the radio too.
Oh, I didn't know you'd bring up, and Dub Dickerson was a good friend of mine.
Was he?
In fact,
I didn't know that.
The first time I got married, he painted the upstairs little old apartment that I rented above the Liddy Boot Company in San Angelo, Texas.
He was a strange character, wasn't he?
He was a strange character. But he wrote a great song in Look What Thoughts Will Do that Lefty Frizzell cut. Yeah.
There's also a CD on him, on the Bear Family label that I really like.
Dub recorded for Capitol Records for a while. Yeah. Knew him well.
Yeah, songs like Bopping in the Dark and several others. No One Loves You Like I Do or some others. I remember playing on my shows. Well, I'm glad that those guys are not controlling WRVU, so we can be here and talking about real country music on Music City, USA.
Absolutely.
And now we have another song, moving on to your Monument days, because in 1966 you signed with Monument Records. Why did you leave Columbia?
Well, at the particular time, there was a lady that was a more than a friend of my producer, and she wanted to get her name on songs. And I would bring him songs for us to record, and he would turn them down because she didn't have part of them, and other people would record them, and I was left in the dark. So I decided I didn't like that kind of arrangement, and so I left Columbia Records, and so I was told that I'd never have another hit, and I said, well, you just watch me. So I went out and started recording for Monument, and I had a whole string of top 10 hits
and one of them, and one of them came in 1966.
A Million and One.
A Million and One. It stayed at number 2 for 4 weeks, according to the book.
It was also another number 1 in the cash box and record world. I had a situation with the Top magazine that they thought that a guy with a big record should finance their company, and I didn't have the cash to do it. And so, that's kind of the way the world works. You buy your way up to success. And I didn't, I was a poor old West Texas boy that come in and, was making a good living, but I didn't have $25,000 a record to throw around, and that's what they wanted, to get number 1. And so I didn't get number 1. It was, I will tell you that it was number 1 on the West Coast, and I got a chance to play the Hollywood Bowl over there when it was number 1 with a few of my other friends, and boy, you could tell it was hot then because I got a standing ovation before I even started singing, and so that was the result of it.
1966, you're listening to WRVU Nashville, Music City, USA. Remember, 322 Rock, 421 Rock, if you want to call. Some people have called and...
have they really?
They have, yeah.
No kidding. I didn't know I was popular with anybody of the Vanderbilt listening audience.
Well, a listener friend called and he said that he likes a song you did called San Jacinto or San Jacinto or something like that. I've never heard of that song. But he said that one of the first, the first album that he had was one of yours. That he bought was one of your albums. So yeah, he said he was.
I punished that guy, didn't I?
No, you sure didn't. 1966, $1 million and one. It was number 2 for 4 weeks for Billy Walker. You're gonna listen to it right now here on Music City, USA. Music City, USA, WRVU Nashville, broadcasting live from Surratt Student Center here in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, at Vanderbilt University. This is Cowboy Anton along with you. I'm very glad you joined in. We have Billy Walker here. Thank you very much for listening.
Where did you get that name, Cowboy? Where'd you get that name, Cowboy?
Where did I get it from?
Yeah, you just took it, didn't you?
I kind of took it. Yeah, I was. You know, I was born in the northwestern city, so I'm not even from the country. But
well, I thought maybe you was one of those Spanish cowboys. You know, they got them all over the world nowadays. They got them in South America. They got them in Mexico. They got them all over. They got them in Spain too.
Yeah, well, I'm not a real cowboy like out in the fields, but I'm a cowboy at heart because I like country music. So
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's where I got it from. That was a great song, 1,000,001, and
yeah, it was really good for me. It eventually sold 1 million copies. So yeah, it was good.
It became a million seller.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And we were talking off the mic that that sounded a little bit like Jim Reeves' music.
Well, actually, Reeves, it's because it's a ballad, and Reeves had a little lower voice than I did. But those ballads, it has that Nashville flavor to them, and I think that's what's identifiable in most all these 60s and 70s records that we produced. They all had an identifying mark that of the musician and the song, the marriage between them, and the singers. We all had something in common. You know, you take songs like "Funny How Time Slips Away," "Four Walls," "He'll Have to Go," "Nightlife," and all those Christopherson songs. They have a marriage between the singer and the musicians that you don't get nowadays.
Yeah, but I guess that this move towards pop music that was the Nashville sound probably was not accepted among some parts of the country audience.
Well, I'm sure that there probably wasn't. However, you know, you had guys like Don Gibson that was doing country records that was really big pop records. It's been a blue, blue day. That and everybody's going out and having fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a good old country song. It didn't have any kind of just had a guitar lick by Chet Atkins. It could be played anywhere. And but it was the songs and the sound of the songs. That's what a lot of people doesn't understand. It was pleasing to the ear, and it had an identifying, pardon me, got my teeth fixed, my tongue won't work now, identifying mark between that sound and the singer. That's what I'm trying to relate, is because, you know, like the other guys, they would record in hotel rooms, you know, and stuff like that, and it was a kind of a raw sound that couldn't be reproduced again. If they got a good sound, they couldn't reproduce it because they couldn't go back, and because even the weather changes the sound of everything. And you know, it's just the way life is, buddy.
I would like to talk about two things that I find very interesting, and one of them is...
Well, if I can answer them, I will.
In 1960, you came to Nashville to appear on the Grand Ole Opry for the first time.
Yes, I did.
And
well, no, actually, I came in 1955 when Thank You for Calling was hot. I came up here and worked a bunch of dates with Pee Wee King, some television shows. I guessed it very periodically because I was working a show from November of 1955 until sometime in '59 with Red Foley, a network television show out of Springfield, Missouri called the Ozark Jubilee. And in those days, they had a kind of a battle back and forth between the Opry on television time, and one entity didn't like the other entity, and that's why I didn't guest more on the Grand Ole Opry. But I was working a lot of days. I had a Western dance band all the time. I was working the hayride and the time that I was doing the Ozark Jubilee. And I made up my mind in 1959 that I wanted to be a concert artist instead of a honky-tonk and a dance hall singer. Mm-hmm. And so in November of 59, the guy that was to become my manager, he was Patsy Cline's manager also, called me and he said, Billy, there ain't nobody making any money in this business except people out of Nashville. He said, if I get you a guest spot on the Opry, will you come and talk to them about becoming a member? And I said, you bet I will. So we were working in El Paso, Texas that night. I hopped on a plane and came to Nashville, and I told the band, I said, get what you can get. I'm going to take it. I knew I had to make a change because in order for your life to change, you have to take chances. And so I came to Nashville. Actually, I really liked to starve the first year I was here. Even though I'd had hit records before, it was a different world to operate in.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of country singers that over the years had to change from honky-tonk to pop music, or country pop music, I would say, Nashville sound.
Mm-hmm.
Even Jim Reeves had to do that. In the very beginning, he started recording honky-tonk, but then he moved on to the Nashville sound.
Well, excuse me, Reeves, kill that microphone. Reeves was recording at the radio station there in Shreveport, KWKH, and when he came up here to go with the RCA Records, Chet had just they had just opened RCAB, I believe it was, and so Jim recorded up here, and he got an entirely different sound. In fact, old Reeves, he got back to the hayride down there, and he played me "Yonder Comes a Sucker," and he's got my gal, and I said, "You got a hit there, pal." And so it kind of smoothed the feathers because I recorded Mexican Joe, and I had a lot of record sales out of Mexican Joe that Jim Reeves had the true hit on, but he didn't have any distribution for the record company. So Columbia said, we want you to record Mexican Joe. And so old Reeves, he got pretty hot at me for doing that, but I was one of 2 or 3 other people that recorded it also. So we finally got our differences straightened out.
That Mexican Joe was a Mitchell Torok song.
Yeah.
And actually, you had to sing it live on the jamboree hayride. Sorry, while Jim Reeves was hired there as an announcer, and he was standing on the aisles watching you sing his own hit.
Yeah, he wasn't. They wouldn't let him sing on the hayride. Something that didn't make sense to me. But I think it was a personality conflict between Reeves and Horace Logan, and Horace said. He wouldn't let Jim Reeves sing Mexican Joe on the hayride, and so I had a record, so I sang it myself, and Reeves got pretty hot about that, but really it wasn't my doing; it was just the way it fell.
Mm-hmm. And what before going on to the next song that I have prepared here, I would like to know what your experience of playing at the Grand Ole Opry that first night was.
Oh, Jiminy! The night they made me the member, I had played a New Year's Eve dance I had it going in Fort Worth, Texas, and about midnight I jumped in my car and I drove straight through to Nashville, which is 700 miles, and I got in here that afternoon, rehearsed with the band, did the 2 shows at the Opera. In the last show, Ernest Tubb introduced me. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, would like to introduce to the Grand Ole Opry family our newest member, Billy Walker." And I came out and sang. Boy, I'm telling you, you would think that my voice had a tremolo in it, and my knees shook, my voice shook, and I was really nervous, boy, to tell you the truth.
Well, I can understand that. You were singing at the Ryman, the Mother Church of Country Music. And,
yeah.
Do you remember which was the first song you sang there?
No, to tell you the truth, I don't remember. I know that I sang thank you for calling one of the songs. But to tell you the truth, I was so nervous, I don't even remember what I sang on that show. And just as soon as I got off the show, now I'd been up for 24, 26 hours. Oh, I'd been up for, 30 hours then. And Ernest Tubbs says, you are going to be on the Midnight Jamboree with me tonight, aren't you? He said, kid, you need that exposure. I said, yes, sir, I'll be there. So we did the second show at the Opry, and then I got off a Midnight Jamboree at about 1:30 in the morning. And I'll tell you the truth, I never was so exhausted in all my life, but I knew it had been a good weekend, and, I was on my way to Nashville to, try my hand at the concert stage.
Music City, USA. Billy Walker sharing his memories about his life and career and music here with us. I'm Cowboy Anton. Thank you very much for listening. We're going on to a next song now, which is exactly the one that I requested in that show when you mistook me as a woman. Well, Jennifer did.
Oh, is this the Cowboy? What is this?
The song is Bear With Me a Little Longer.
Oh, this is the Darrell Glenn. Darrell Glenn and I worked together, had a publishing company for a while, and Darrell was from Fort Worth and Waco, Texas. I was about 5, 6 years older than Darrell, and Darrell's dad and I used to play those honky-tonks out of Waco, and we was so poor then, we had to catch a bus, and Darrell's daddy played the old bass fiddle, and I played guitar, and we would catch the bus at the end of town, and we'd walk about 2 miles to this honky-tonk we used to play. And so Darrell, that's how Darrell and I really, our lives together. And then when he got to Nashville, we kind of hooked up and we did some records together. And here's one of the songs that he wrote.
And the song here on Music City, USA. Remember, we welcome your calls, 322-ROCK, 421-ROCK, 7625, that is. And now, the song that, I think this was the first song by you I ever heard. And, really brings back memories to me. So let's play this great song by Billy Walker here on Music City, USA. Bear With Me a Little Longer. Music City, USA, WRVU Nashville. This is Cowboy Anton. What a great song that was. Bear With Me a Little Longer by Billy Walker. We have Billy Walker here in the studio, and Ken Berryhill has been kind enough to let me stay on the air for a little longer. It's 12:23 here in the Music City. And, since we have Billy Walker here, Ken Berryhill said, well, you can stay on as long as you wish afternoon. So I said, thank you very much, Ken, and we'll have, let's hope he will join in later. I hope he will.
Yeah, turn my microphone on.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's really a pleasant gentleman, isn't he? I said, I know you. And he said, well, yeah, you do. I've been backstage at the Opry. And, you see so many people back there that you don't see out in public, and you forget who they are. You know them at the time, but you kind of can't remember them when you get out in public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess that happens. You must have met a lot of people backstage at the Opry.
Oh, yes, I have.
And I saw a picture on your Just for the Hank of It CD, and you had the Deputy Sheriff from Gunsmoke on there, and...
Oh, Dennis Weaver. I whistled on one of Dennis Weaver's records one time. We got to be kind of pretty good friends because Ray Pennington produced an album on Dennis Weaver, and Ray, I whistled on Charlie's Shoes and a bunch of it. So he said, "Would you consider whistling?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'll go down there." Didn't charge him a dime. I just because he's a great guy. And I whistled on 3 or 4 people's records, and that I never, I just wanted to do it, to see if I could do it.
And who was that whistling on Charlie's Shoes? Was it yourself?
That's me.
Uh-huh.
The reason why I whistled, because when Funny How Time Slips Away it got popular in the pop field up in Michigan. And I did a record hop. Me and Chuck Berry did a record hop for this guy in 61. And he said, well, what are you going to record after Funny How Time Slips Away? And he had a ukulele there. And I picked the ukulele up and tuned it up and whistled the intro to Charlie's Shoes and played the ukulele. And he said, if you'll cut it just like that, I'll make it a pop smash. He said, Detroit sweats my charts, and so does LS and Chicago, which are 2 powerhouses. And so I come back, and because I already had Charlie's Shoes cut on the same session with Funny, and with a fiddle and a steel guitar. And so I come back and talked them into redoing the song with a whistle and a ukulele, and man, it come out smoking. So I'm really thankful to the guy who suggested that.
Well, it's definitely a great record and a great idea, and for that recording. I'm sorry I have to talk about sad things now.
It's all right.
And I'm talking about the 5th of March, 1963.
Yeah, that's when Patsy and Cowboy Copas and Hawkshaw Hawkins and Randy Hughes got killed in a plane crash.
That was on a day like not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, in 1963. Three great country stars passed away in a plane crash, and Randy Hughes was on there too.
Yeah, Randy was my manager back then. In fact, Patsy and I had been flying around with him doing some dates about 10 days before that plane crash up in Ohio and parts of Indiana. And so, you know, as far as I was concerned, he was a pretty good pilot. But he wasn't good enough to survive the storm that he flew through. So, you know, pilot era is generally the culprit that does a lot of people in flying airplanes.
Mm-hmm. And I read on one of Ralph Emery's books that you were supposed to be on that plane. Is that true?
That's true, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
You know, you often wonder why the Lord allows certain things in your life and not allows. That whole weekend, they were supposed to. She had played a show date in Birmingham on that Saturday night, and my contract with the Opry said I couldn't miss but 6 Saturday nights a year, and so I had to play the Opry. And the dumb guy that was promoting the show, well, he's a good friend of mine. I won't say that, but he forgot to give the auditorium the money for the rent, and so he called me up about the time I was going to work the Opry and said they're not going to open the auditorium tomorrow. And he and I were promoting the show together, and I got Patsy and Hawkshaw and had George Jones and a bunch of those people to do this show to raise money for this guy because he'd a friend of Guy Smith's who was on the radio there in Kansas City. His name was Jack Call. Got killed in a car wreck, and they didn't have enough money to bury him. So we got this show together, and so Patsy and Randy was going to come by and pick me up, and Cowboy Copas, who was Randy's father-in-law. Well, I never could get on that plane that whole weekend. The Lord wouldn't let me. And that Sunday night, we had the show. Randy had produced a called Midnight Press Party. Only one I ever heard of, but you see, I had some tremendous records then. Patsy Cline had a tremendous record. Hawkshaw Hawkins had the #1 record that week. Copas had Alabama. George Jones, of course, you know, he's a running entity with the charts. So, you know, we had this 1-hour midnight press party, and about 10 minutes before the press party was over with, I got an emergency long-distance call asking me to get back to Nashville as quick as I could because of some near-death members of my family. And so going down the elevator, Hawkshaw Hawkins pulled out his airline ticket, and he said, "Here, kid, you be Hawkshaw Hawkins at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm taking your place on that plane." So that's how it happened.
Hawkshaw Hawkins and Patsy Cline were riding high in the charts back then. Cowboy Copas was just in a comeback at the time. He had been a very popular hit recording artist in the 1940s with Tennessee Waltz and Sweet to Be Remembered and all those songs he did. Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. And did you know the three of them well?
Oh, yes, certainly. Hawk was a very personable friend of mine. In fact, right before then, I'd been out off of Maplewood Lane watching Hawk work his horses because I lived over there not too far from him. And Copas and I had worked a lot of tours together. Of course, Patsy and I had just got through working a tour together. We were very close friends, being in the same stable of artists that Randy Hughes had. He only had me and Patsy Cline at that time for artists. And so, yeah, they were all very, very close to me.
that was a tragic and sad loss for country music. Just as could be comparable to the death of Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and
Yeah.
don't remember the other guy's name now. Richie Valens.
Yeah, Richie Valens.
But well, you know, those are things that happen. And Jack Anglin was also killed in a car crash.
Well, I was sitting right next to Kitty and Johnny Wright, which was Johnny was the other half of Johnny and Jack singing duet at the memorial of Patsy's and Hawk's Memorial when they came in and told him that they had just taken Jack's body to the Madison Funeral Home. So it was a real tragic day for everybody.
It's 12:31 here in the Music City. You're listening to Music City USA on WRVU Nashville. Cowboy Anton along with you. We have Billy Walker here.
Cowboy Billy Walker.
Cowboy
Since
Billy
you're
Walker.
going to be a cowboy, I'm going to be a cowboy.
You are the cowboy. You have
Yeah.
that song, The Cowboy?
Yeah, I used to rope and ride and all that kind of stuff when I was growing up. I rode a lot of horses. We roped a lot of cows. Of course, by then we was using pickups also.
A beautiful song now we have on Music City USA. One that I really like, and you say that just changing one chord to it would just...
Oh, is this Sundown Mary?
Sundown
oh, yeah,
Mary,
man,
that's-
you listen to all the chord changes in this song. It's a new chord change every beat, and if you get mixed up, buddy, you got a train wreck.
That was a top 20 hit for you?
Yeah, I think it was. Actually, I think it got higher than that, but I'm not sure now. I'd have to look at the charts. You know, you forget where all these positions were at
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah,
But it's a good song for me.
sometimes they're even wrong in the book. So, you know,
Yeah.
I say it's number 3, maybe it was number 2, but you never know. 1968, a top 20 hit for Billy Walker, and a song I've always liked, and it has always reminded me a little bit of Brasses and Marty Robbins. Of
Yeah.
course, the Brasses at Waco
Yeah.
and Marty. Billy Walker doing this beautiful version of Sundown Mary. Beautiful song, Sundown Mary by Billy Walker. He's right here in the studio with us now. Kim Barry.
I'm alive in person.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm actually talking on the microphone
Yeah.
and looking you right in the eye.
Well, I'm very surprised that you are, because, you know, after all, I made you wait this morning at the Bayou studio.
Well, we just got mixed up, and so we're here now. So, you know, it's. I thought you were going to be one place, and you thought I was going to be at another place, and so, but we finally hooked up, and so here we are.
Great we are here.
And I want to thank my friend over here for relinquishing some of his time so we could share more of the microphone, and I appreciate it very much. He's pretty knowledgeable character himself.
I know he is.
Yes, he is.
I've been trying to have him on the air for half an hour now, but he just didn't want to join in now. So we'll wait until next time.
Okay. All right. Send me a bill. I may not pay it, but you can send it.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about another show you can listen to here on WRVU. It's called High Off the Mountain. Listen to Shep, same high time, same high place, Mondays from 8 to 10 p.m. here on WRVU 91.1. I'll keep the bluegrass spinning as long as you keep your heels a-kicking. That's High Off the Mountain here on WRVU Nashville from 8 to 10 every Monday. And if you like...
Well, it sounds like he plays a lot of Del McCoury and Ricky Skaggs and Jim the Christmas and the Osborne brothers, and there's a great group of bluegrass guys out there these days. They have some really great people in this business.
This specific show, High Off the Mountain, it also broadcasts plays some old time
some
bluegrass.
real old bluegrass.
Real old bluegrass, yeah.
The grass before it got blue, huh? Yeah. It was green by the time they recorded it. It got blue later on.
These 1960s years were extremely successful years for you. You were in just about every national TV show, Jimmy Dean show, Hee Haw, several...
Yeah, in fact, I had a television show of my own in 68, 69, and 70 called Billy Walker's Country Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they're running on one of the satellite channels, RFD, right now. They're playing some of those old shows, and I go back and look at them, and I said, I knew that guy right there. And to see, we had Lefty on there, we had Merle Haggard, we had Bobby Bear. We had every one of the guys that were hit artists of the day we had on there, and so it's good to see, go back and see some of those old shows and say we had a good time. It's interesting to see, and they weren't too bad for their day. I look back and now, and it was a pretty clean cut show.
And that was a syndicated TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were in 152 markets, and so we were pretty successful with it.
Do you think that television, from your perspective and from your experience in the business, do you think TV had a lot to do with the popularity of country music in the 1960s?
It probably did. But mostly, I think the popularity of the music came from the performers and the record companies. The originality of putting songs and putting people together and putting musicians together. Television only copied what they did. You only see on television what somebody's already done on record. The only thing about television is that it popularizes, and in one respect, your question is true. It did popularize what we had done on record, and so it did attribute to making the music more popular.
Those were also the years that saw a lot of British bands come over to the United States. Like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who.
And Hermits and
all that. Do you think that the popularity of the Beatles and that new kind of music was of any damage to country music at all?
Well, I think that probably everything evolves and takes away from one art form or another. It's just that if it doesn't evolve to where you no longer know it, I no longer know country music as it once was. When we were having hit records, they called the stuff that they're putting out nowadays country, but hey, there really isn't anything. What we used to sing as country music has no identity. What they're producing nowadays. To me, it's a form of rock and pop together with the guys playing the guitar, and every once in a while you hear a fiddle slide across and a steel guitar, and they call it country. But to me, there's not a lot of identity there. That we were stylists, singers. You could hear us sing, and you say, well, hey, that's Billy Walker, that's Ernest Tubb, that's Eddie Arnold, that's Lefty Frizzell. Whoever it was, you could identify. I can't identify. I can hear 4 or 5 artists now, and they got the same producers, and or a lot of and the same musicians, and you can't get any identity from them. Now that's my opinion. I mean, opinions are every day everybody's got a different one, but that's my opinion.
Well, I was going to ask you about that later on, but as you
I covered it already.
So let's move on to some more music now. Let's hear Billy Walker sing again here. We're recording from the 1960s again, from your Monument days.
Okay. What are we going to play?
One that I also like called I Taught Her Everything She Knows.
Yeah, okay. This is a cute little old song.
All right, that's all you'll say about it. So let's hear it now. Music City, USA. Billy Walker in the studio with... You're listening to WRVU Nashville, Music City, USA. 2 songs in a row there. First of all, I Taught Her Everything She Knows. And then this Mexican-flavored song called In Del Rio. Billy Walker in the studio with us.
Yeah, I did a lot of different kind of songs. I do ballads. I do up-tempo songs like Charlie Shoes. Charlie Shoes is just a happy, sad song. That's all it is. And then I do the Mexican type songs because that's the kind of music I kind of grew up with out in West Texas, and me and an old boy named Ray Wicks wrote that on a tour one time. We were playing a whole bunch of dates for George Wallace down in Alabama, and we had a lot of time to spend riding, so it kind of wrote itself within about a couple-hour period.
Did you actually get to listen to a lot of music in Spanish when you were growing up in Texas?
Well, all I ever learned was a few cuss words. So, you know.
Probably put us off the air if you say that now.
Oh, yes. Wouldn't dare do that.
But you know, I guess that it was, you know, Texas is, I think, a very rich music land.
Oh, yeah. In fact, some of our neighbors were Mexican families, and so I got to know a language. If you don't speak it very often, you lose it. I know when I went to Germany, I used to go to Germany. I'd learn a lot of the German language, but if I didn't, I'd go back for about the first 5 years. I got to where I could speak, I could get around, I could order food, I could ask for directions, I could do this in German, and so Spanish about the same way with me. If you're around it and you speak a little of it, you can get enough information to know what you're trying to ask for, but you can't really speak the language unless you really get into it. Of course, you grow up in Spain. You're the Castilian cowboy.
Well, a Galician cowboy.
A what?
Galician cowboy?
Galician?
From the Northwest?
Oh,
that's the region around.
Is that the region? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I knew it was something more. I knew there's something like that.
Back to the 1970s, you signed with MGM Records. It had been Hank Williams' label.
Yeah.
And again, what were the circumstances surrounding that change of label?
Fred Foster at the time, you know, when I came on board, they had 14 million sellers with Roy Orbison. And but when I got there, he was in the process of leaving the label. Boots Randolph was over there. Dolly Parton was over there. So about the time that I had a 4-year contract with him, and he and some of his financial backers had gotten a squabble, and they just weren't doing any recording. They wasn't doing anything. They were just sitting there waiting for the lawsuit to happen. And I told Fred, I said, Fred, I got to put out records, and you know that's the lifeblood of my career. And so my contract run out, and so Buddy Lee Attractions, I had Buddy as a manager back then, and he said, MGM is offering you a real good deal. And so I went with MGM, and as long as Mike Herb was the president of MGM, I was having, well, When a Man Loves a Woman was another record that hit top #1 in 2 magazines, and it hit 3 in Billboard, you know. But we had a lot of success with MGM there for a while until Jimmy Bowen come along. And so, you know, that was my reason for leaving Monument. It wasn't any friction between me and Fred. We're still dear friends today. And I'd go by and if he had office, I'd still go by and visit him. But I watched him, you know, produce a lot of people that became hit artists. I suppose you might say that I left for financial reasons. I had to have a place for my records to get out. That's the lifeblood of any artist.
And wouldn't you say that your music on MGM changed a little bit, turned a little bit more towards pop music?
Well, the guy that was my producer over there, Jim Viano, was a New York guy, you know, and they all got different ideas on. But he was a good guy. He loved country music, and so me and Mel Tillis and Hank Williams Jr. and Sheb Woolley, and he recorded all of us, and so he had a little different flavor on the how to produce an artist, and so we were very successful for quite a while.
So Hank Jr. was in the label at the same time?
Yeah, that's right. We was working a lot of dates together back then. Yeah.
We're going to listen to that little change in style I was talking about with the next song, which was...
what is it?
Was another huge hit for you. You just talked about it a while ago.
When a Man Loves a Woman?
When a Man Loves a Woman.
Okay. Yeah, it was a good record for me.
It was you can correct if I'm mistaken, top 3 record for you.
Well, listen, Billboard. As I got a plaque at home from Record World and Cashbox where it's #1. You know, we go back to the money deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in any case, I've always thought that charts were not, it's not all about charts. There are a lot of great records that
No,
don't
but-
even show up on the charts.
No, but the financial empire is all about charts.
That's true. When a Man Loves a Woman the Way That I Love You, a 1970 hit record for Billy Walker. We're going to listen to it right now here on Music City, USA. You listen to WRVU Nashville. This is Music City, USA, broadcasting live from Vanderbilt University here in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee. This is Cowboy Anton along with you. Thank you very much for listening. We have a studio audience here tonight. Yeah, we do. On the show today, Cam Berryhill. I'm taking all of his show. I'm feeling a little, about that, but just wish he joined in, but just can't get him here by the microphone. But
I'm here.
I know you're there. Billy Walker in the studio with us. We were listening to When a Man Loves a Woman, great record from 1970s when he changed labels and went to MGM. J.W. Biddy is here in the studio with us too, and he'll be bringing his guitar, and Billy Walker will be singing some live songs. My friend Mayra here from the Spanish department also in the studio with us. Jasmine's also here, and I just I'll play another song while Billy Walker gets back to the studio here, and we'll keep on talking with him, and he said he would be singing live songs, so I'm really looking forward to that. Remember, phone lines here, 322-7625, that is 322-7625, 421-7625, 421-7625. Remember those last four digits, spell out the word rock. So it's 322-ROCK or 421-ROCK if you want to call in, ask for, any request, any comment you have. We're welcome. That's welcome. So please do it. 12:57 in the Music City. Listen to WRVU Nashville. And now another one of Billy Walker's hits. One that I like very, very much. Also from 1970. The song is called She Goes A-Walking Through My Mind. Billy Walker live in the studio with us here on WRVU Nashville. This is Music City, USA. 1 o'clock here in the Music City. At this time, the old record shop should start, but I'm taking a long time from Cam Berryhill's show, and, I thank him very much for that. It's real nice of him to do that, and let me stay on the air, but
I've got
he's
to
over
get
here.
into the mic.
Okay,
Listen,
come on.
You don't need to apologize or anything. We have Billy Walker live here.
Oh, gracious.
So listen, take me off the air all you want to.
Well, it's, while the record's been playing, Ken and I have been talking about people that we knew in the business, and so it's very interesting to talk on the radio with you and then talk off the radio with Ken. So it's a real pleasure.
And one of those singers was Gene Austin. You recorded one of his songs in the 1960s, or?
Yeah, I had a top 10 record on Ramona. I hear the mission bells above. In fact, I used to sing it phonetically in German when I'd go to Germany.
A lot of artists in country music, like Johnny Cash and Jim Reeves, recorded songs in different languages, like for example Afrikaans, or in the case of Jim, or German in the case of Johnny Cash, and several others did. Did you ever do that too?
Well, I was supposed to record "Cross the Brasses" at Waco in German, and the guy with CBS in Frankfurt, we just about had the deal all ready when I was going to come back over there, and somehow he lost his position in the A&R department, and this just kind of got lost in the shuffle, so we never did. However, I did do some German television, the equivalent of the Tonight Show. I did 1,000,001 because it was very big over there also, and I did some of the television shows over there. And it's very interesting to see, how other people perceive you in different places like that. Traveling around the world really makes you appreciate what you got at home, but it does make you appreciate their culture also.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that, because over the years you've been very successful in Europe. You played at many festivals over there, so what's your impression of European country fans?
I tell you what, they're very avid fans. If they like your music, they're very avid fans, and of course that makes a guy, his ego would just go sky high, and it's really nice. I really enjoyed playing different countries.
It's nice hearing that, considering that I'm also a European country fan.
Well, yeah, I remember one time we did some touring over there, one of those Mervyn Con tours with myself and Johnny Cash and about 4 other artists, something. Of course, the Carter family. And we were in this, it's called the Festhaus building. It's a Hall of Festivals building in Frankfurt there. And it's a cement structure, and it's round. And you'd hit a note, and about 5 minutes later, it'd come back at you. And we did this show from there. It was really funny to hear. Love is a ring of fire, 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 fire. I'd like to be in Charlie's shoes, shoes, shoes. Boy, you some really weird places that I've played before, and as I say, it's interesting.
You played at Wembley Stadium also, which is one of the biggest soccer stadiums in Europe.
Yeah.
They had a show over there, and a lot of country singers went there. And you played with Boxcar Willie and several others.
Yeah, I got a tape at home, and I'm not trying to pull my own leg on this or toot my own horn, but I got a 5-minute and 45-second standing ovation in Wembley. Yeah, I don't know why. Some reason they like me, and right before Boxy came on, and Boxy made me come back out and do another song to quieten the crowd down. When we did this show, and I always thought that was really nice of him. He was a dear friend, and we worked a lot of more European things together than we did here in the States.
Yeah, I must say that unfortunately we don't have many country music festivals in Spain, but in the northern countries like Sweden and Holland and Belgium, England, they really like country music a lot, and in Ireland it is very, very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I was talking to Stonewall Jackson the other day, and he's gone back over to Ireland to do some more dates over there, and we have done some things over there, but not in an extensive tour. We played, several times in Belfast and Dublin, but not in the countryside of like I have in Germany and England, and we've done about 20 tours in all in England and Germany and Norway, and we've done about 5 or 6 tours in Norway and Austria and Switzerland and Belgium and you name it, and we've been over there somewhere doing something.
Well, now I would like to play a song that was not a hit record for you, but you recorded it and you did a great version of it. It's a song that, as far as I remember, Carl Butler had out. It's called Honky Tonk Itis.
Your kid, yeah, Carl and Pearl.
Carl and Pearl Butler.
Carl and Pearl Butler, yeah. You got that?
I got that
was
right
that
here.
On that RCA record? Is that where you got that? Okay.
That's where it is. Actually, it's a CD called "Sing Me a Love Song," called 17 Great Country Songs from the Country Star.
Yeah, I've got a strong suspicion that my baby's stepping out. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that for a $5 bill.
Well, we're going to play right here.
Okay.
Because Carl Butler has always been one of my favorites.
Is that right?
That's true.
Yeah, man, me and Carl and Pearl worked a lot of dates together. Yeah.
So here is Billy Walker's version of a song that was a hit for Carl and Pearl Butler, Honky Tonk Itis. Well, I guess Billy Walker did not think I would put out this song here. I would pull up this song and play it, but it's a great version of Honky Tonk Itis.
Yeah, that really surprised me because it's been a long time since I even tried to sing that song. Much less I'm hearing it again. I say, hey, I knew that guy that recorded that song. I see these. I've watched one of those old television shows that I did, and I said, I knew that guy. When you see yourselves 30 some odd years later on television, you say, man, that wasn't too bad, was it?
Well, now,
we've got a left-handed guitar player with a left-handed singer. And you said you want to hear something in person. Well, I'll do you. As I was telling you a minute ago, we were doing an interview with old boy named Powell over in Radio London. He said, Billy said, I'm going to play your version of He'll Have to Go. And I said, well, I never recorded He'll Have to Go. He put it up on the turntable and played it. And I said, wow, where'd that come from? He says, it was one of the old Army transcriptions that we made when we were doing shows for the U.S. Army back when He'll Have to Go was popular. All right, hit me in a little intro. Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone. I'll tell the man to turn the jukebox way down low. And you can tell your friend there with you, he'll have to go. Whisper to me, tell me, do you love me true? Or is he holding you the way I do? Though love is blind, make up your mind, I've got to know. You can tell your friend there with you, he'll have to go. Thank you, left-handed guitar player.
yeah.
Tell me your name again.
J.W. Biddy.
J.W. Well, J.W., I appreciate it. He's got a left-handed guitar, so that leaves me out of the guitar playing today. Thank you, J.W. That's a nice little Yamaha you got there. Sounds real good.
J.W. Biddy with his left-handed guitar, and Billy Walker singing that
A left-handed song.
Left-handed song, a beautiful song by Jim Reeves. He'll Have to Go. It was written by Joe Allison, actually.
Yeah, the first record of it was by Billy Brown. Do you remember that, Barry Hill?
No.
You don't remember that? I was there the night he recorded it. You could, it's almost the same record that Jim Reeves made. And Jim, one thing Jim said, I had this happen to me with Mexican Joe. He waited for about 6 months, and Columbia would not promote the Billy Brown record of He'll Have to Go, and so Jim come out with it, and of course it was an overnight smash. Big, big song.
Yeah, that song, after that first version that you're talking about, and then Jim Reeves' version, it was recorded several times. Even Elvis Presley did a version of this. And then there was an answer song to that called He'll Have to Stay.
Who did that?
I don't remember now.
Yeah.
I just thought about it.
You know,
now.
Goldie Hill did a lot of those answer songs back, but I think she had already quit recording by the time. No. He'll Have to Go came out in what, 60?
Yeah.
60, 61? Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, Goldie was still making...
Probably even before that, maybe 59. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
you're right. It was 59. Goldie was still making, but she would do all those answer songs. I'll Let the Stars Get in My Eyes, and there's back in the 50s and early 60s, there was a lot of answer songs. Men would sing songs, and women would come in and have answer songs. You know, Kitty Wells.
That all started with The Wild Side of Life. And,
yeah, it did.
It wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels.
Yeah.
I think
You're
Hank
right.
Thompson had the original Wild Side of Life, and
No, he didn't have the original.
well, not the original, but
I'll tell you who had the original.
who had the original?
But the guy that wrote it was a member of Jimmy Heap and the Melody Masters in Taylor, Texas. They had a record on 4-Star.
Oh, okay.
And Hank come in and recorded it, and of course, Wild Side of Life became a smash. And then the Kitty Wells record, Wild Side of Life, came out and made a smash too. So
Yeah.
Warren Smith, who wrote the song, was a good friend of mine. So
Warren Smith?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a Warren Smith who recorded for Sun Records.
Yeah, that's not the same guy.
That's not the same.
Not the same guy.
Now you mentioned Jimmy Heap. He also had the original version of "Release Me," I think it was.
You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
He had another one that that I used to sing a little bit, called "I Got Ethel in My Gas Tank, but No Girl in My Arms."
Oh, yeah.
We used to, of course, Jimmy Heap was really popular in Central Texas, and he had a jamboree every Monday night that me and Webb and Farron, we'd all go over there and sing at it because that was the only place in the world you could play on a Monday night at Buck Holtz, Texas. And it's just a little bitty town with a great big dance hall, and so that's how I came to learn that song, and people wanted to hear it, and so I sang it too.
Bill Walker on the show with us here on Music City USA 116 in the Music City. I'll read you a little PSA here. This is WRVU service to the Nashville community, and this is about the Village Cultural Arts Center. For 17 years, the Village Cultural Arts Center has provided a unique cultural exchange for over 35,000 residents of Nashville's urban communities and its surrounding suburbs. Our mission is to empower people by providing artistic experiences that are culturally diverse and historically rich. The Village Cultural Arts Center offers classes for all ages in drum and percussion, Caribbean and African dance, and math and science after-school enrichment. Their programs explore the importance of creative expression, cultural enrichment, self-esteem, and responsibility to oneself and to one's community. Well, for more information about the Village Cultural Arts Center, just call 228-9553. That is 228-9553. I wish I had Jim Ed Brown to do this because he did a great job at the Midnight Jamboree last Saturday night, reading one of those announcements.
Yeah, I heard that.
You heard
Excuse
it?
me. Yeah, we did the 11:30 show on the Opry, and I was driving home, and I heard him doing a commercial. He did a pretty good job. Well, of course, we all have read commercials from time to time. I used to do when I was working a hayride, I had a midnight a disc jockey show called the Red River Roundup, and so we all did a little bit of radio. Mm-hmm. Besides live radio, we did disc jockeys. Anything in the music business that you can make $1 at, we've all done.
That Red River Roundup reminds me of your movie roles. You were on a couple of movies, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I didn't have any kind of a role in a Red Ryder movie. Me and a friend of mine went out to California when I was about 18 years old, and Red Ryder was a big series of cowboy movies back in the 40s and 50s, and Wild Bill Elliott was the guy that was the Red Ryder, and you know who Little Beaver was? Robert Blake. You're right.
I didn't know that.
I'd been on the radio with out in Abilene with a little guy that was the double for Little Beaver on the Red Ryder movies. His name was Richie Havens, and Richie called me and said, if you come out here, he said, I'll get you a job riding in the movies. So, I could ride pretty good back in those days. And so me and a friend of mine went out there, and we got us an extras card. The extras card cost $50, and $50 in 1947 was a lot of money. And but anyway, they let us ride in the posse on this Republic picture of Red River Roundup. Was that the name of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah.
And there's another one called Second Fiddle to a Steel
Oh, well,
Guitar.
I was singing in that one. That was back in 63 or 4 or something like that. I was singing and, acting, if you can call it acting. I'd just being myself. Anyway, we went out there. We got this extras card. We got it on credit. And they said, we worked 2 days, and they paid us $35 a day. And so they deducted the extras card from what we did. We wound up in time they took the taxes out. I think we had $19 left.
So
and us boys at 18, 19 years old, we didn't have much money. So I got me a job singing telegrams in Hollywood, the Hollywood office of the Western Union. And so they had streetcars back then. And so one day we had to get around on bicycles. And so I was riding out across this railroad, the streetcar track, which is a railroad track, and my bicycle hit one of those tracks and it broke half in two, and I fell over and this streetcar was coming down the thing.
Oh.
Boy, I got out of the way just in time and I pulled that bicycle over. I went in and resigned my position as a singing telegram man, and I went back to Clovis, New Mexico. So my cowboy days of riding in the movies was over with.
So that you said you could ride and row pretty well, and
Yeah.
so that picture of you on the cover of that Bear Family box set, Cross the Brass at Waco, that's real. That's not fake picture.
Oh,
is it?
let me tell you, you want to know about that picture?
Sure.
That picture was taken. Took is not a very good word. Taken one cold February morning. And I just, that white horse was a stallion, and you know stallions, they're ornery as they can be anyway. So I'd been riding him the day before that, so we got out there at the place where they're keeping these horses, and we saddled this horse up, and that picture was taken just as the sun was coming up. And we saddled this horse, and he didn't have a choker from his bridle down to his chest. And I got on that horse and was riding him around, and he threw his head back, and if you look on that Cross the Brazos cover, you'll notice there's a little white makeup on my right eye. That horse threw his head back and hit me right in the eye, and it started the swelling. And that big mountain that I was supposed to be looking over, that was a great heap of frozen manure. And you notice my right boot has started sinking down into that manure. That's what that picture was taken on that day.
Well, since you were talking about Marty Robbins before,
there's a lot of interesting things in this business.
but you got to look real close to notice that.
Yeah.
Marty Robbins, you were talking about him before, and I would like to play a song that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It's the number 16 on this 20 Golden Country Hits album that I have here. It's called "He Sang the Songs About El Paso." That's definitely about Marty Robbins.
Yeah, I wrote this song just after Marty passed away. In fact, I just found an old picture that a friend of mine sent me not long ago of taken October 1960 of me and Marty, and so I went and had it blown up to 8x10. And so when Marty passed away, I was doing a cruise ship, a performance on a cruise ship out of California, and so I came back to Nashville, and on the way down to Texas, I wrote this song. Me and my band on the way down to play in Texas. I wrote a part of this. He sang the songs about El Paso, and I got back, and me and the bass man Ronnie Cochran finished it up and recorded it. And it's just a tribute about Marty. And I waited a year to put it out because I didn't want Ronnie or any of the family thinking that I was going to try to capitalize off of Marty's death. And so we put it out on my own label, Tall Texan. He sang the songs about El Paso.
Well, here's Billy Walker's tribute to Marty Robbins. What a great singer he was, and what a great singer of country music and Western music and pop music. He did just about everything.
Yeah.
So here's Billy's tribute to him from the album 20 Golden Country Hits on Tall Texan Records. He sang the songs about El Paso. Marty Robbins, a tribute to Marty Robbins. He sang the songs about El Paso. Billy Walker recorded that after Marty Robbins' death.
Mm-hmm.
He died a little before his time, didn't he?
Yes, he really did. Marty would stay up all night. Marty had a real sleep disorder. He had really two disorders. His blood manufactured a lot more cholesterol than a young man of his age, and so that's why the heart problem back that he had back in the early 70s, and which eventually killed him. Why he went into auto racing, I'll never know, because that's about the most strenuous thing on your heart that you can have. But he was in insomnia. He can only sleep, like 3 or 4 hours a night. That's why he was up with old Ralph Emery so many nights on on the Ralph's Late record shop.
On WSN.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a great song you did here. Very nice tribute. There are a lot of tributes to different artists like Hank Williams and
Yeah.
But this is great song. And
Well, I didn't. I just wanted to pay. He was a good friend of mine, and I first met Marty back in the early 1952. He hadn't been making records all that long when "I'll Go On Alone" came out, and I had "Anything Your Heart Desires," and we were playing a honky tonk in Waco, Texas, of all places. And Marty was He'd come out and he'd play steel while he was singing. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Marty could play steel guitar. Yes, he could play a pretty good little, kind of Roy Wiggins type steel guitar.
Oh,
Yeah, good musician.
And Vern Young also recorded that, "Anything Your Heart Desires."
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
First heard his version, then I heard your version, actually.
Well, the first version I had, I recorded again in '68, and it got in the top 10. The first version, was the first version back in '52. So, I'm glad he cut it. I made some money off of it.
Well, I have an album here called "Just for the Hank of It," a double tribute to Hank Williams Sr. and Hank Snow. On Tall Texan Records, it has songs like "Rumba Boogie," "Yellow Roses," "Take This Change From My Heart," "You're Cheating Hard," "Mansion on the Hill." Well, it's a tribute to two important Hanks in the history of country music.
And the CD is called "Just for the Hank of It."
Just for the Hank.
Yeah.
Okay.
we were this bunch of us going to play some kind of a casino somewhere a couple of years ago, right before we put this out. And one of them said, well, I just cut the tracks on this because the tracks on the Hank Snow have Caton Roberts, and the guy that was the original fiddle player on Moving On, he's since passed away, and Hank's old band.
The Melody Ranch Boys.
Yeah, Melody Ranch Boys. And on some of the tracks of the Hank Williams, I had Jerry Rivers and Don Helms also, who were most of the original Hank Williams stuff. So I wanted to capture the flavor of both of them because I worked with both of those guys. However, Hank Snow I worked hundreds of dates with. Even though I didn't have that long to work with Hank Williams, he was still very personable and very influential in this business. And I wanted to. I just like the songs. I like, one artist likes another artist's songs because they just do something to them. And so, man, I sung a million Hank Snow songs on these dances I used to play, and Hank Williams songs. You couldn't play a date unless you played Hank Williams songs. Well, he was a very famous guy, so the public liked him too. So, what you try to do as an artist is you try to kind of diversify yourself with other people's songs because other people like you to hear or like you to hear you sing other people's songs, and so that's what I tried to do. I'd include. In fact, I still include on my shows. I'll do at least one Hank Snow song and one Hank Williams song, and plug the CD because I really think it's a pretty classy CD with a lot of yesterday's style of music in today's musical format.
Well, I agree, and I'm sure that all the listeners listening out there will also agree. Now we're going to play one song from that album.
Yeah, what are we going to play?
I Don't Hurt Anymore.
Okay. This is the original guys that played on the Hank Snows, too.
Okay, so the original, Rainbow Ranch.
Yeah, that's it. I knew you'd get it.
With Billy Walker and his version of a beautiful song that was a huge crossover hit for Hank Snow in the 1950s. I Don't Hurt Anymore. I Don't Hurt Anymore. It's not It Don't Hurt Anymore, but I Don't Hurt Anymore from this album, Just for the Hank of It, a double tribute to Hank Williams Sr. and Hank Snow on Tall Texan Records by Billy Walker. You should get this one. It's amazing. Great album.
I did what's the first cut, the Hank Snow cut on that? Rumba
Boogie, yeah.
I did Rumba Boogie on the Opry several times, and they let me use Kate and Roberts on there, and it was a lot of fun. I used to tell Hank Snow, I said, man, you got a double clutching tongue. Ain't nobody can sing, I've been everywhere, boy. I've been Reno, and you know, like an auctioneer does. Now, Leroy Van Dyke could have sang that, but I couldn't. Man, my tongue don't work that fast.
Johnny Cash tried as well in one of his last albums.
Yeah, he did but he didn't do it as fast as Hank Snow. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. And Cash does, I've been everywhere, man. He can't do it like Hank Snow.
Yeah,
man.
well, I just wonder how he did. I mean, he probably had lived most of that in his live shows, because it's just impossible to remember all those names.
Yeah, you know, I'm guilty of that too. There's a lot of times where I don't sing a song that's got a lot of words. I went down to Florida in February, and so we did El Paso. Somebody wanted to hear El Paso, and so I got the words printed up big. But you know, the thing is 5 minutes long. You know, in the world, you can, after a while, I mean, all those verses start running together. So I did El Paso and got all the cheating words out that you lay down on the floor or put on a little music stand. So I know how that goes.
That's something they did to El Paso they never should have done. They cut the song down to 3 minutes for airplay way back in the 50s. And this is a story song. You know, that's the worst thing you can do to a story song, is to shorten it, because, you know, then the story is not the story anymore.
Yeah, they kept the arms and legs, and they cut out the guts of it, didn't they? But you know, they eventually released the 5-minute version because radio would not play. You know why? I'll give you a little history lesson. You know why a song had to be between 2:30 and 2:45 minutes long?
Well, I don't know that.
You wouldn't know that because you hadn't been here long enough. No, it wasn't that. It's the jukeboxes would automatically cut off at between 2:45 and 2:50. The arm would reject, and so you had to have a song that was just a little less than 2:45 in order for it to go on the jukebox. And if it went on the jukebox and got popular, the radio stations would play it. And so that's how you had that kind of record. Then it wasn't until later on that a record got to be 3 minutes, and then when El Paso come along 5 minutes, they sure wasn't going to play that. And then he had one called San Angelo that was 8 minutes long.
That was 8 minutes long.
That's when the announcer went to the restroom.
He had like a whole saga of whole group of Western songs.
Yeah.
Told similar story, like El Paso City and El Paso.
Yeah. We all got indoctrinated by that Western needle for a long time.
Well, now we'll play one song by Hank Williams from this album.
Okay, what do you want to play?
Well, it's not actually a song that Hank wrote. It's the Lovesick Blues.
Yeah, I don't know if you know how come him to record this or not.
I think that it was an Emmett Miller song, and Hank Williams.
Well, it had been popular in the semi-popular in the 20s, you know, and Hank was on the Louisiana Hayride, and he got to sing it on the Louisiana Hayride, and he got to encoring with it, and he come to Fred Rose up here in Nashville. Fred didn't have nothing to do. He wasn't going to cut Lovesick Blues because it wasn't a Cuff Rose song. He couldn't make any money out of it. So as a fourth song, when they cut it up in Cincinnati, that's Jerry Bird, by the way, playing steel guitar on that. And in Cincinnati, when the record come out, they flipped it over and played the Lovesick Blues, and it became the smash, that you hear. And of course, after it made Hank extremely popular, well, then Fred capitalized off of it because every song after that was an Ache of Rose song.
Yeah, he had to do several encores the first time he did it on the Opry.
Yeah, I think he took 7 encores. Yeah.
Well, here's Billy Walker's version of Hank Williams's. It was actually written by some Tin Pan Alley guys in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Cliff Friends and Irving Mills, and recorded by Emmett Miller. I have that version somewhere, but it's not a country version. It's like a show tune version. But this is Billy Walker's version from the album Just for the Hank of It, Billy Walker and Lovesick Blues. I got the Lovesick Blues. That was Billy Walker's version of Hank Williams' classic. And you can find this song on the album Just for the Hank of It, double tribute to Hank Williams Sr. and Hank Snow. Be sure to get that album, and also 20 Golden Country Hits on Tall Texan Records.
You can find them at the Ernest Tubb Record Shop, because I just took them a big order yesterday.
And yeah, definitely, if you like Billy Walker, and I'm sure you do, if not, you wouldn't be listening to the show today.
Yeah, that's about all they've had today, isn't it? I punished them severely with my singing.
Well, you sure did, and it was, you know, we've been here for 2 hours, 45 minutes already.
Have we really?
We have.
Gee, it seemed like 4. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
1:45.
I tell you what, I'm amazed that you know as much as you do about this business, and you being from a different country.
Yeah, well, as you said, European country fans are very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
So from as long as I can remember, since I was 9, 10 years old, I've been listening to it.
Yeah, but you're not that old.
I'm not.
Yeah. And you're talking about songs that go way past your age.
Yeah, well, as I always say to Ken, I've been reading a lot about this.
Yeah.
He was lucky enough to be there and see it. I had to read about it.
Yeah, well, he knows a lot about this business, too. I'm telling you what, he goes back and talks about people that I almost forgot about.
So,
yeah, I think probably the 50s, 60s, and 70s was really the golden era of what we call or come to know as country music. When I first started out, I was they call me a hillbilly singer.
yeah.
We was all hillbilly singers back then, and on the record it said Billy Walker with vocal and string band. Now I was a string band singer.
Well, that was not a string band, though, was it?
Yeah.
Well, it was, but not in the way we usually think of string bands, like 20s, 30s recordings. Huh?
Well, my first record was done in a radio station in Dallas. I played my own rhythm guitar. We had a steel guitar player that had a little microphone over in the corner, and then Howdy Forster, we had a microphone drop down from the ceiling, and I sang, and then Howdy Forster would work in and out, and we found the hot spot in the room for the big bass fiddle, the tone of the big bass fiddle, and that was the string band we had back then. So, you know, the string band, I'm the string band singer.
78 RPM?
78s, yeah. I made, my first 8 records were 78s, yeah. Then 45s come along, then 33 and a thirds, and then 16, what was that, 16-track cassettes, then cassettes, then CDs, 8 tracks, I'm sorry, not 16, 8 tracks, CDs, now DVDs, man, I made them all. I didn't make the cylinder records, though.
Oh, well. Well, you would have to go way back to do that. But in any case, if you're out there listening and would like to hear more of Billy Walker's, those 2 albums I told you about, Just for the Hank of It, 20 Golden Country Hits, I don't think you would find this 18 Great Country Songs on Country Stars, because I think it's discontinued.
Yeah, that's a European release.
It's a European release.
Yeah.
And then there's his Greatest Hits and Monument on Sony Music. And this new one that Koch Records has just put out, which is it's Columbia Hits.
Columbia Hits, yeah. It's got Come a Little Bit Closer. I Got You on My Mind Again is the song that I cut with, I did a split record session with Buddy Holly out in Clovis, New Mexico, which became a good record for me back then in 1957. It's on there. Anything Your Heart Desires. Thank you for calling.
Were those produced by Norman Petty in Clovis, New Mexico?
Yeah. Of course, Don put his name on it. Instead of Norman, it was cut in Norman Petty's studio, but Don put his name on it. Me and Norman cut it about 3 o'clock one morning. Norman played piano. His wife, Vi, who was my roommate in school while I was going to school there in Clovis, And then the guys that played with Buddy Holly, Joe,
Joe Allison?
No, not Joe.
No, Joe Allison. Joe Malden or
Malden.
right.
Malden. Yeah, Joe drove me back to Amarillo, and I caught a plane from Amarillo back into Missouri. So it was a long night, but it was a profitable night. And I had played a little jamboree for Slim Willett, who wrote "Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes." And Slim had this was a Slim Willett song, so Slim was really interested in me. So I called Norman up, said, "Norman, I ain't got a lot of money." He said, "Well, you got something I could publish." So I had wrote a crazy little old song called "Viva La Matador" on the B-side, and I don't want you to play it. But to satisfy Norman's monetary thing, I said, "Well, Norman, if Columbia likes this and they'll take it," I said, "they'll pay you for it and they'll pay the." He said, "Well, but you got something I can publish." So I had this little crazy little old song that I sang and let him publish it.
Yeah, and Skits McDonald had the big hit with that, "Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes."
You're right. You're right. He did. You know your music, buddy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Remember, there's also a 6 CD box set released by Bear Family over in Germany. It's called "Cross the Brazos at Waco," and it's a fantastic set, just like everything that the Bear Family does, everything in chronological order. Wonderful booklet, and it's sure worth the money, I tell you.
You know, they've got songs in there that were never released on anything else. They got the original Charlie Shoes on there, too, that was never released. They got "Farewell Party," which I cut many years before Gene Watson cut it. Of course, you know, every singer that has a hit song, you don't know if you could have had a hit on it or not. I have no idea. I know he had an ending on it that really captured everybody's attention. And I got there's a few songs on there, probably about 10 songs on it that were never released as far as the public is concerned.
Okay, well, before we close the show, and we're going to have another live performance by Billy Walker, but before that, I would like to play one more song so that we can get...
We're getting coordinated.
Everything coordinated.
Yeah, me and the left-handed guitar player. We got to get coordinated.
We really appreciate J.W. Biddy playing there. His left-handed guitar. And I like to play a song that was a big hit in 1988 for K.D. Lang.
Okay, yeah.
And you wrote it with Harlan Howard.
Well, actually, I wrote it.
And
I come home, and it was 1963, and Harlan never had anything to do with it. Me and Jan, we was playing Monopoly one night at Harlan's house, and I sung this song, and Jan said, "Well, let me change this line and this line." And before I knew it, I cut it, and Harlan had his name on it. So, but anyway, I never thought it was that good of a song to begin with. It was the B-side of "Cross the Brazos at Waco." I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that. No.
No, and then which sold 1 million records, and then K.D. Lang come along. I didn't even know I didn't know K.D. Lang at all, and somebody said, "Hey man, what about that new song that you got out?" And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Down to My Last Cigarette." And I said, "Well, where'd you hear that at?" And he said, "It's a new record by a new artist, and it's really going to town." And it made about 200 grand. Well, I like that. Yeah. It was real good to me.
And it's a very good song, I think. You can find it on that 20 Golden Country Hits, recorded for Tall Texan Records. We're going to hear that version right now by Billy Walker, and then we'll sign off the show with some live music from Billy Walker. "Down to My Last Cigarette." Beautiful song, "Down to My Last Cigarette," a big hit for K.D. Lang in 1988. That was Billy Walker's version. You can find it on 20 Golden Country Hits, the Tall Texan label. And now, Billy, we're going to have a little more live music here.
We're gonna close out with a hymn. You know, Country Act always closes out with a hymn, because if you love the Lord, you got to sing a song about the Lord. And so, here's a little song that Red Foley used to do and made popular. And so I'm going to do a verse and a chorus of what is it we're going to do? Just a Closer Walk with Thee. I knew that song. Okay. Oh, I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be.
No. Billy Walker.
I hope that sounded halfway decent. You know, generally you warm up a little bit before you start singing in person.
Billy Walker live here on WRVU. J.W. Biddy playing guitar. Thank you very much for that. Well, Billy, it was real good having you here on the show with us. It was really my dream come true, as I said on that email I sent you that time. And you said you don't have very big dreams. Well, you know, that's one that has just come true on the show right here.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure to be with you today, and you know, I'm glad that you're really enthusiastic about this business, because it is a great business, and it's all about the music. It's not about the money. I never got into it for the money's sake of it. I just wanted to make a living at doing what I love to do, and that was play and sing and create songs. And it's nice of you to say that you like some of my material, and I'm delighted that you're a fan, and it's been a wonderful experience being here on the station with you.
Thank you very much for visiting. And now we're going to close the show. There's a new show coming on. Remember, Billy Walker's music, you should check out. Just for the hank of it, Billy Walker, a double tribute to Hank Williams Sr. and Hank Snow. 20 golden country hits, also on Tall Texan Records. Of course, the Koch Records release just came out, Columbia Hits, and then that 6 CD box set on the Bear Family label, which is absolutely fantastic.
Well, I've only had 65, LPs on the market, so just take your pick.
All right, to everyone out there listening, and also to the studio audience here, J.W. Biddy, Maida, Jasmine is also here, Elaine, J.W.'s wife just walked in, and I want to thank everyone for being here.
I want to thank Ken for allowing me to be on his time, and gee, it's been a real pleasure talking with him about all the people that he knew and I knew, and the music that we share together in our memories.
My pleasure.
Don't forget to listen to Ken Berryhill's show here next week, the Old Record Store and Ken's Country Classics. Now we're going to leave. We're going to leave with old Fern Young. He's going to say, sign us off here on his freight train. He always does so. Thank you very much for being here, Billy.
Bye-bye.
And to everyone out there listening, we'll be back here next Wednesday from 11 a.m. We've been here for 3 hours with Billy Walker. We'll be back here next Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 on WRVU Nashville, Music City, USA. Remember, we'll be back here if the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise. Now let's let old Farron sign us out of here. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week. Now, Farron, come on in.